back, and I was thinking about since the last episode on Friday, just about like what I said, and I've been trying to connect these pieces that prove the hypothesis that XRP is in some way going to be involved in this new technology of moving money around the world. And since I posted, I've been kind of been like wrapping in my head of like thinking if I was like watching this, like what I'd be thinking. And the thing I came up with is if my hypothesis was correct or is correct, you might be thinking, then why the hell is the price not the same as Bitcoin or Ethereum if all these people want to use it? Why are more people not talking about it out in the open? What is keeping this kind of like this secret technology if everyone seems to be or will be using it one day? And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. And we notice with Bitcoin, Ethereum in the past few years, they are exploding and ripping, reaching all time highs almost weekly, if not daily. And then you look at XRP, which is number 3 on the chart of most popular cryptocurrencies, and the price movement has been nothing near this. And I think I know why, but we're going to dig into it today. And what we're going to talk about are the barriers that have been in the way of not only my hypothesis that XRP is going to be a part of this new financial infrastructure, but also the lack of momentum with the price. And so, what are the barriers, if there are any, that has blocked XRP's adoption? That's one thing we're going to talk about. How are those barriers possibly coming down, if there are some? And what does this mean for the future of global finance? So, since I started making these videos, which was around February 5th, 2025, XRP has increased by 25.7%, which is pretty good for an investment portfolio, especially for someone like me that does not come from investment world at all. Uh, and my entry point, if we're looking at when these videos started, because I entered XRP a lot earlier, but the entry point around the time of my first video was $2.53. And now today we're sitting at around $3.18 a token. And this is interesting. It might be enough, but I've realized that this is only part of the story. And I actually don't even care about the price when I think about the utility. And this is the point I'm trying to convey. So, why hasn't XRP exploded yet? And what's changing to allow for it to explode? In 2020, if you haven't been around this space for this long, the SEC, which is the Security and Exchange Commission in the United States, filed a lawsuit against Ripple for the selling of XRP, saying that it was a registered security. This immediately froze interest from banks and institutions in the United States who couldn't afford the legal and regulatory risk of being involved with a company like this. Uh, During this time of like regulatory uncertainty and like right around the same time, Bank of America had shown interest in working with XRP Ledger, but they stepped away and they said they wouldn't come back until the regulatory clarity was absolutely clear. MoneyGram also had shown interest to work with XRP, but paused their work with Ripple and XRP due to the lack of clarity. And all this time, Ripple kept building, but in the US, it was like trying to build a train while the government was pulling up the train tracks. And so it puts them in a very interesting position. And this is why I always said, if you go back to any of my videos, look at the people that are working for the board of directors. They're super smart, they're super brilliant. They come from the legacy system, and they've been really working hard to push Ripple and XRP forward. So even though XRP had and has real world utility, the lawsuit in the United States clouded its utility with uncertainty, especially in the most important financial market in the world, which is the United States. While Ripple was being sued and frozen out of the US markets, Ethereum and other tokens were quietly allowed to operate, even thrive, without the same legal scrutiny that XRP was receiving. In 2018, the SEC director, William Hinman, famously declared Ethereum not a security, giving Ethereum a free regulatory pass to operate, be traded in the US and around the world. And in that time, we've seen Ethereum completely explode in price. And even today, I believe we're at all time highs again. The speech that Mr. Himnan gave later revealed that it was full of conflicts of interest, and these conflicts of interest shaped the entire cryptocurrency world up until nearly today. Ethereum and other projects that focused on decentralized apps and consumer speculation were able to grow, if not explode, in the US, while Ripple, who focused on enterprise, use case, banks, uh, was sidelined and basically said you can't play, you're off limits. And so my takeaway from this is the crypto that tried to work with banks got punished, and the crypto that avoided banks got a free pass. But now the regulatory tide is turning, and the original promise of XRP, I think, might finally get the space it needs to actually thrive. And this is where I get really excited, if you can't tell, because I'm making these videos. Um, so where are we now with this SEC case? Where are we with legal status, not only in the US, but around the world? That's what we're going to look at. So in July 13th, 2023, Judge Annalisa Torres, who was overseeing this case, she came to the conclusion that XRP is not a security when sold to secondary markets or exchanges. Only Ripple's direct institutional sales were deemed as unregistered securities. Programmatic sales via exchanges and other distributions, employee compensation, etc., were not securities. This was a huge win for Ripple, and many in the XRP family, including me, thought that this would soar the price, and we were quickly met with the opposite. Um, and so, keep going back to the storyline of dates. The final judgment was issued on October 3rd, 2023. And this is all a little deep, but I just want to kind of just go through it so we can just be where we are and see where we're going to be in the future. So after the final judgment, parties had 60 days to file an appeal with the second court. The deadline was December 2nd, 2023. But there is a little twist with this. Rather than appealing immediately, both parties agreed in October 2023 to dismiss the remaining charges related to Ripple executives Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson, another big win. And shortly after, Ripple dropped its cross appeal in October 2023. The SEC did not file an appeal of the core XRP ruling during this window, and they also didn't file a motion to reconsider Torres's decision, which they could have done, and they missed. So as of today, there are no active appeals on Torres's ruling. The SEC has taken no public steps to reverse or challenge the XRP is not a security decision. In public statements and in court filings since late 2023, Ripple has referred to the case as resolved. Rumors suggest a final settlement has been paid through the SEC, though the SEC hasn't officially confirmed the dollar amount publicly. Ripple and other of its people on their board has confirmed that the money has been sent to close this out. So, if you're anything like me, you're probably bored over with so much dense information, but all of this is super important. And some more things I want to bring up, and I'll kind of connect all of these again. But on January 15th, 2025, the Court of Appeals ordered the SEC to submit an opening appeal brief by January 15th, 2025, or risk dismissal. The SEC met the deadline, thus keeping the appeal alive at the time. This is important and shows where we are right now. But something that just happened just this past week is the SEC had a closed door meeting on July 25th, 2025, and the SEC is scheduled to hold a closed Sunshine Act meeting on July 20th. I'm kind of repeating myself. I think I get so excited about this and I want to be really thorough. But the SEC is having a closed door meeting on July 24th, 2025. And what they're supposed to discuss is the resolution of litigation claims with XRP and the settlement of injunctive actions. So we have no idea what has happened in this meeting, but I'm sure in the coming days we'll know more and more. Um, the XRP community sees this as a strong sign that the SEC might vote to drop its appeal, potentially closing the lawsuit. So we're sitting in this point of like purgatory, waiting to know what's going to happen, if there's complete legal clarity, and then what happens next. Will banks and institutions enter this market if they have more regulatory clarity, or will XRP still be stunted to grow? So, let's see. Just kind of looking over notes. Um, and I know I talked about everything super dense, but I just want to point out dates so we can have them. July 13th, 2023, the judge ruled XRP tokens on exchanges are not securities. Huge win. October 2023, Ripple dropped its cross appeal. January 15th, the deadline for the SEC to file an appropriate brief was met, keeping the case alive. June 26, 2025, the judge denied a joint settlement request by both the SEC and XRP or Ripple for a fine reduction. June 27, 2025, Ripple confirmed cross appeal withdrawal, meaning they dropped their appeal with the SEC, which I think is a huge sign. They must know something. If you don't go to a fight and stop fighting if you don't know the other side is also going to stop fighting, in my opinion. I could be wrong, just my opinion. And then the closed door meeting on July 25th, 2025. So we'll find out what all this means. So, in interpretation of all this dense ass stuff, if the SEC chooses not to pursue its appeal after the July meeting, it may effectively close and exit the case, making Judge Torres's ruling final. That scenario would mean XRP is recognized as not being a security when sold on public markets. Two, Ripple's legal chapter closes, leaving a clear path for adoption. And many legal analysts consider that the meeting is an intentional point for the SEC to decide how they want to go forward and what they want to do next. And if we think about the current landscape of the political climate in the U.S., we have President Trump, who has already multiple times said that he wants to be the king of crypto. He wants America to be the king of crypto, or the land of crypto. We have people in regulatory roles that are heading the SEC, the Treasury Department, that are all massively pro crypto. And I think this tonality of an administration that is finally pro crypto will also push the sell winds of this forward. So as of now, there's no public announcement yet, but the SEC's own rule book requires them to decide whether to continue with the appeal, and that window must be met by July 24th, which was last week. So we will see what happens. As of today, XRP is legally recognized as not a security in the U.S. as part of a secondary market. Ripple has clarity and is expanding globally and launching new projects like RLUSD, partnerships, and pilots all over the world. Ripple and XRP now hold licenses across key global jurisdictions, which no other cryptocurrency is doing or meeting. They're in New York with BitLicense, and they meet the New York's approval rating for financial services, which is some of the highest in the world. They're in Singapore with the license for MAS. They're also just got approved in Dubai with a Vera license. And Dubai is said to be very progressive as it comes to cryptocurrency. And also, they are approved with licenses to operate in Ireland, and also in Europe and the UK with MiCA regulations happening right now in Europe. So Ripple is everywhere. They have their plugged into all these assets, and I just think it's really interesting as we're coming to the close of a huge court case in the U.S. So I did want to point out also, Ripple has been working, lawsuit or not, and they've already launched or partnered with numerous pilots or live projects around the world. And some examples are Palu. They have a stablecoin pilot. Ripple helped launch a US dollar backed stablecoin in Palu on the XRP ledger. It focused on financial inclusion and cross border payments for this island nation. And I think the thing that's so interesting to point out is Palu is its own sovereign country. However, it is a very close ally to the US, and it's even backed by the US government, although or the US, what do you call it, armed forces, even though it's its own sovereign country. And so I definitely think that if Palu, they'd be very cautious about entering into any new financial channels that might not go well with the US. So I think that's very interesting. Ripple's CBDC platform has launched pilot programs in Bhutan, also Colombia and Montenegro, along with Hong Kong. So we have more and more nations that are joining this conversation and actually implementing this technology. Ripple's liquidity hub, which connects lots of liquidity and on-demand liquidity, is active and has corridors in Mexico, Brazil, the Philippines, India, Japan, Europe, and Australia. It just blows my mind when we're talking about this. And meanwhile, the global regulatory landscape continues to change. In the UK, specifically, they passed the Financial Services and Markets Act, which was called the Blue Act, which passed in 2023, and it gives the UK Treasury power to regulate cryptocurrency and bring it in as part of a financial infrastructure. This is viewed as a very pro crypto framework, enabling stablecoin development and broader asset adoption. Uh, I already mentioned MiCA in the UK, but it passed in the EU. I'm sorry, and it's the most comprehensive crypto regulation bill to date, and it brings legal clarity to crypto issuers, stablecoins, and exchanges across 27 countries. Uh, in the UAE, Dubai's Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority has welcomed cryptocurrencies with clear, progressive guidelines. Ripple now holds a license in the UAE. And then in Hong Kong, they recently launched a pilot for a Hong Kong backed stablecoin. And they are linked to Ripple and XRP through a third party business, which I think is very interesting. And then recently, BRICS came out with a video, which I thought was very timely. BRICS talked about how it's been mentioned many times that they want to create a new currency to go against the dollar and to kind of have another option. But they came out very clearly this week and said that their idea is not to go against the dollar, but to have an alternative form of payment to move money between countries seamlessly. And the conversations that I heard in the interview were so similar, if not exactly, of what I hear when I hear about Ripple and XRP. And it was come out in many reports that BRICS was piloting to work with XRP and Ripple to find a stablecoin that was backed by gold. Who knows if all this is true, but it's just very interesting that we're leading more and more into a conversation that seems to be where Ripple is right in the middle of it. So in the US, we've passed the FIT 21 Crypto Market Structure Bill, the Clarity for Payments Stablecoins Act. And then this week alone, we have so many things happening. I'm trying not to overwhelm you all, but there's so much happening in this world. This week, the White House is announcing, or they have a date that they're supposed to announce, what stockpile of cryptocurrencies that they will now purchase and what is in that stockpile. It's rumored that XRP may be in this stockpile. And if it is, this is a huge signal to the market that XRP is real and solid and a firm investment. Also, we have Jerome Powell coming out this week talking about interest rates and whether he's going to keep them the same or lower them. And if you are new to this industry or been here for a while, we know that when interest rates go lower, interest on assets like cryptocurrencies have the potential to go higher. So, what does all this mean for now? With the SEC lawsuit basically behind us, global regulation seems to be falling into place. The floodgates might finally be opening. Ripple has regulatory license in Singapore, UK, Ireland, UAE, and all 50 states in the United States. RLUSD has launched, and this week, I believe I looked on Saturday, it was ranked the #1 stablecoin and given a grade A rating by a third-party website, meaning that its transparency, auditability, liquidity were all very strong compared to Tether which Tether is another stablecoin. It was the #1 market share of stablecoins, but it got a D rating on the same list. So banks who once waited on the sidelines now have a legal framework to begin integrating with XRP and Ripple's technology, which I think is huge. We are witnessing the shift from speculation to infrastructure. And XRP that was once frozen out of this game might finally be ready to play the role it was designed for. And I don't think any of us fully understand the impact this will have on the world and the price going forward with this clarity and with this like unleashing. The other thing, which I'm not going to go deep into today, but the other thing that is so interesting that's happening, and I would never tell you to buy XRP, but this is not financial advice. Do whatever you want, but just look at it, please, because at the same time that we have this conversation happening, there are multiple ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, which are bought by firms like investment firms and this kind of thing. They have multiple that have applied to start selling XRP. When Bitcoin their ETF was launched earlier this year, I believe, or at the end of last year, it was the highest performing asset on an ETF ever. And so I think once investment firms and people with money understand the potential of what's available on these markets and with new technology, we have no idea what's going to happen. So this was a lot of information, but I wanted to get it out to you and just further let you know why I'm here, why I believe in XRP. We'll be back tomorrow. Leave a comment, a question. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much, and I will see you tomorrow.